Okay. Um, as if we don't have, or I don't have enough studies on the Y chromosome and the empty DNA chromosome, I'm going to do another one. I'm going to try to do the whole overall picture as far as I can tell so far. But it's very important for creationists because DNA doesn't lie. It tells the truth, exactly who you are, except that keep in mind that we are all very similar to each other, and the discrepancy is somewhat vague between, say, the African Y chromosomes and the Semitic Y chromosomes and the Japhethite chromosomes because they're all brothers, uh, and it's the combination of the mutations or the different numbers of the same information that identifies who you are. So when you get between the two, or between the brothers, from one brother to another, it's sometimes hard to tell which one you are. But the overall general picture is clear to see because of the combination of the changes or different numbers of the copies of the same information or specific information in the Y chromosome. So this is what identifies us as to who we are. It's more the combination than anything else. Because if you look and compare the Y chromosome of the E and the G and the H and the R and the O, they're not really that different from each other, and you can only uh, identify a combination probably by computer or by a lot of study, looking at it very carefully. Even so, there's a general overall picture of descendancy because of the fact that we are copies of our fathers. Our Y chromosomes are copied from our father, copied from his father, and their fathers, you know. So that is what identifies who you are. For example, my family line goes back to Scotland. There's no, you know, there's really no doubt about that. And beyond that, comes from Scandinavia and or the Anglo Saxons. And so that's going back in time like 500 years or more. So it is very accurate in the general sense, as long as you're not in between the two brothers, or it's hard to tell who you are. But otherwise, it's pretty easy to tell who you are. So, without further ado, let me go ahead and see if I can do this. Okay, so I'm going to start out with the Y chromosome. So here we have 6.7 billion people represented here on their Y chromosome. The Y chromosome of 6.7 billion people. Don't some of those have empty DNA identified to identify them? Because the female doesn't have a Y chromosome. But anyway, so let me just go ahead and explain this. With a Y chromosome, you have, and I'll show it in other charts too, you have the A, B, C, D, and E and the C2 is mostly in Africa. And the F is like the dividing line, whether it could be either the E or the G. But this begins the Semitic um, identifier or code. Be the F, G, H, I, J, which the J is the Jewish Y chromosome, and or I is closely associated with J, as we can see later. And the K is this middle ground again, but it could be either Semitic or Japhethite. Okay, then you have the element PQR, which would be the Japhethite. So this is fairly orderly. When we get to the mtDNA, it's not going to be so orderly. It's going to be very, very confusing. So they need to do some work on that. Okay, here, I hope you can see it. I hope there's no banner or anything in the way. Remember what I said? I said that you have the A, B, C, D, and E. And the F is the dividing line. You have the F over on this side, and you have the F over on this side. It could be either or. And notice how they have this mixed up here. They got an A, B, C, D, E, F. But they're trying to say, actually, it's probably true that they're closely associated, but they seem to be probably a different son of Ham. Or it could be, I suppose it could be later descendants of the son of Ham that went the other way. But the CY chromosome is not represented in Africa, and the DY chromosome is not represented in Africa, at least not very much. So then the FG, HI, and J, see the IJ is closely associated. So as far as I can tell, the I is Israel, and the J is Judah, or the Jews and the lost tribes of Israel. Then you have the K that separates these two groups here. So the K element OPQR. And notice the Q and the R are really very closely associated. You can see how the Q came over this way from the here, and the R's came off of here somehow. And I think they used to have them as the same thing, but they separated them or something like that, if I remember right. So, moving right along, we have a lot of charts that might be a little bit confusing, probably because they're trying to be confusing. That's my conspiracy theory. So here we have remember the F and the K? These are the dividing lines. You have the I and the J together, L and T, G, Q, R, J1, J2, the G's here. Then you have the I1, and I2. This would be the lost tribes of Israel because the R is Japhethite. So let's go to a better picture, but you can see how what's represented in Africa is the A, B, and the E, basically. I don't know, the C and the T. Oh, the C. I would have to see that in the pie chart, but C's over here. C's over in Mongolia, and basically you can see later. This is probably an earlier chart. It's not so accurate. But there is also J in Africa too, because of the Falashas were identified as Jewish, and so much they were convinced enough to fly them back to Israel, even though they are African, but they have a JY chromosome. So here's a kind of simplified chart with A, B, C, D, and E. Then it branches off. You have the F, G, H, I, J, K. Then it branches off. You have the element L, P, Q, R. And those branches aren't as significant because, R is R is R. And R is basically the same thing as Q anyway. And they're both from P. But anyway, I guess they're trying to be confusing. So here's everything that's not African, basically. And notice how it originates in the Middle East, or the cradle of civilization. You have the A, F, and the K right here. So the F, G, H, I, J, and K. That's Semitic. Then you have the K, L, M over here, N, O, P. Where's P? I don't see the P. P, Q, R. So I guess the Q and the R basically the same thing. They're basically P. The Q and the R. And notice how they originate all in the cradle of civilization there. So here's the ultimate proof here that we did not come from out of Africa. Notice this Uzbekistan. This represents almost everybody here, even have the sliver of blue, and this blue would be, the light blue would be an E. And of course you have blue here, blue here. This would be the E's. Oh, there's a little bit of blue in Europe. But you have to make sure that it's not mixed up with another color. That you don't confuse it with another color, because some of these colors are the same. So in Africa, you have the A, which is this purple color, the B, which is the yellow color, the C. Oh, that yellow was wrong. Okay, so the C would be the Mongolians up here. The D, remember, these are all brothers, descendants of Ham. So the D you have over here in Tibet, and the D you have in Japan. So this is really the only place that D is represented. Remember how they tried to say that the D and the E were closely associated? But this yellow over here is not D, it's B. And this green is J. So then you have the F, which would be over here. The G, H, I, J are all Semitic. K, L, M, N, O, P, Q, R, or Japhethite. So the O, the blue, is Japhethite. Just notice we have a C down here too. So there's no C represented in Africa, but there is C represented in Mongolia and all the way to the Americas, even in North America, North and South America. So you have C's down here, but apparently they didn't make it across here. And it seems the mitochondria might have made it across here, or else they just came across here and they're not represented in this area. So, and a green is K. It's probably Japhethite. All this green here is probably Japhethite. It's probably not Semitic, even though, they are brothers anyway, so it really doesn't make a difference. So, but you see this concentration of most of the people in this area called the cradle of civilization, then you can see different families with different ways here. So you have different families going different ways, and it's very clear. They all came from here, went this way, this way, this way, this way, and this way, and this way, and down to there. It's really not, it's really pretty clear, actually. It's really not that hard to see. Okay, this is interesting. We're coming to the end of the Y chromosome, basically, because you have the R1, you got the I1. I don't know what that's doing there. This is the Bering Strait, or what do you call it? Yeah, the Bering Sea, Bering Strait. So you have I up in here, and you have J up in here for some reason. And then, of course, the rest are Q. Of course, you don't have, there's quite a bit of J, I guess. This is J. This would be J. That's J. The I1A. That's B, by the way. That's the light green. So the light green is here. It's my chromosomes represented here in the Bering Strait with a green, light green. So, and I'm pretty sure this is a Y chromosome. Yeah, Y chromosome. Sometimes they mix them up and everything is hard to tell. So this is the so-called family tree according to the evolutionary belief. They think this is Adam over here, A. That's why they started with A. Then they got BR. The R has nothing to do. The R is down over here. The R has nothing to do with B. They just put them together. The CR, they have nothing to do together. They're just down here. They got to put the D and the E together. The E, the D and the E. The D has nothing to do with the E. I mean, as far as location is concerned. And the C has nothing to do with, even though the C is mixed up with the R, but that's because they mix up in Europe or Asia, whatever. So you can still see the groups. You can see A, B, C, D, and E, F, G, H, I, and J, K, L, M, N, O, P, Q, R. You can see the three distinct groups there. So I just wanted to revisit something here. See over here in Africa, you have the R1B. So in Africa, you only have the A, B, and the E, with the exception of the R1B, and there's also a J over here in Africa. That would be East Africa. And of course, up in Northern Africa, they have J's too. So that's pretty definitive, seems to me. Okay, so we'll go over to the mtDNA, which is more confusing. Now we have to pay attention here to the colors a little bit. See all these L's over here on this side? All these L's are African. See, they're only represented in Africa, according to this chart. And generally speaking, that is the case. So the three groups here are clearly seen. This is the mtDNA. Keep in mind, it has nothing to do with what we just saw in the Y chromosome. It has nothing to do with it. And it's all mixed up. The lettering is all mixed up. It's very confusing. So, but basically you have the L0, 1, 2, and 3. I don't even see the 2. But anyway, you have the L's over here. Then you start the M. And this is the mitochondrial DNA. The M. The M is, you can see the colors over here are pretty much Japhethite. So the M is a Japhethite. The N and the R are the Semitics. And of course, these colors represent where they're found. So that gives you an idea of how mixed up it is. You got the L's. Only the L's are African. All the L's are African. Everything under M is Japhethite. Everything under N is Semitic. Give or take one or two here and there. So this is a chart. It's very confusing. You got lines all over the place. Trying to say that we all came from here, but that's not the case when you look at the pie charts. So we'll try to find a better example here. Well, here's the pie chart. Remember, this is the mitochondrial DNA. It just shows the same thing. Everyone is represented, with the exception of the L's. Everyone is represented here in the Middle East, or the cradle of a civilization, you might say. There's Uzbekistan again. Okay, so in Africa, you have the L1, this color, L2, this color, L3, this color. That's basically all there is in Africa. Then you have the M. Everything after M falls under M, no matter what the letter is. Then you have the N. Everything after N falls under the letter N, no matter what it is. So it's very confusing. But I don't know if they try to make it that way or they're just very haphazard in the way they made it or what. But anyway, we can see my mitochondrial is H3G or something like that. So that would be this blue over here. And the H falls under the N, so that means it's Semitic. So, and the others are what they are. But the interesting thing here, what I was noting before, is that you have this B over here, this red color. It's up and down the coast, all throughout the coast, over in this area. This is basically, it's a Japethite. It falls under, well, no, it falls under N, so it's Semitic. So, but the thing is that you have a huge representation here in this area, in the islands. Not sure what island this is, Samoa or someplace. What's PO? What's PO? Polynesians. Oh, I guess it's all Polynesians. So that's all the islands, I guess. So all the Polynesians have a very strong Semitic origin. And up in here, there is no B mitochondria represented in this area. It's only in this area, this area, this area, this area. So I'm thinking maybe they, went from the Pacific Ocean and landed in the Americas. Either that or they went through this area and never stayed in this area. They only remained in these areas. Those are the two options, I guess. So in the Americas, besides that, you have the C. This C here is Japhethite. Up here, see up here, you have a lot of C. So that's Japhethite. You have this U. It seems to be the right color, or is it W? Some of these colors are hard to tell, but I think that would be Semitic too. You got the Eskimos, or ES is Eskimo, or almost 100% either A, A or U. It's hard to tell what it is. Maybe it's A. I don't know. Yeah, it's A, because this U is over here in Europe. This U is Semitic too, but it's over here in Europe. So this color would be A. It's hard to tell sometimes what it is, but that falls under N, so that's Semitic. And the only thing that doesn't appear to be Semitic would be the C over here, which falls after M. And again, the L is only represented in Africa for the most part. So this is kind of confusing. I think I have a better map than this. Yeah, this is maybe better. So here you have the L's. Remember, this is one group. You have the N's, which is all this group here. From here, you have the X's that went this way. And they don't know if this is X or not. You have the B's. But the B's are what? See, this is kind of confusing. The B's are, what were the B's? See the B? That's falls under N. And we can go back further to this chart. Find the B over. So this is very confusing. Where's the B? There's a B right here. See? So this B in this area in Polynesia is highly represented. Falls under N, which is Semitic. So that chart's not even right. This one here, the B is Semitic, and they don't show it coming from N, but it is coming from N. But they are showing this X coming from there, and the see the A. But it's crazy how they put this sometimes. Sometimes they'll put an A, B, C, and it has nothing. See, like right here, it's A, B, C. This is mitochondrial. It has nothing to do with, because you got the L over here. It says empty DNA. Let me see if we can find the B. The B is the yellow. Yeah, okay, so we have B represented here. And the A, A2. A is what? A's under N2. So it's very confusing. You have the A and the B over here. You got the C, D, E, and G over here. And it's just almost all out of order. But anyways. So yeah, I have the A and the B. They're both Semitic. A and the B. They're both Semitic. And we have the C. The C is not Semitic. The C falls under M. So the C is the Japhetite, which would be all this red. The D, I think that's Japhetite too. The D is Japhethite too. The C, the D, and the G are Japhethite. So this is the mitochondrial, of course. And then the interesting thing is that this is the Native American populations, mtDNA, haplogroups. Now, we have a curious result here. Of course, the X, we know what the X is. The D, the D is, the D is Japhethites too. So then we have the L. So how did the L get over here in the native population? It's over on the coast, which is where the slaves were brought. So the indigenous population has some L in it. Same thing with the Caribbean. You have some indigenous populations that have the L in it. And even up through here, because, of course, the Native Americans, North America, uh, mixed with the African population too. So this is not, this color here, this L does not, is not originate from, this is from, historical thing. Because in Brazil, Brazil has a history of 500 years. It was owned by Portugal, but see, our history is 300 years. Brazil's history is 500 years. So they were here a long, long time. They were a long time ago. I don't know. I don't know what was going on in those extra 200 years over here, but it was owned by Portugal. Brazil was owned by Portugal. They had an emperor or something for a long, long time, for a couple hundred years. And then the Brazilian government was actually modeled after the United States form of government, of course, with their own quirks or with their own ideas. And you know, everybody has to govern themselves, and they have to, you know, make their own rules and stuff. So, but it was modeled after our form of government that started 300 years ago. So, what happened was, is they had a, Revolutionary War like we did, except that there was one person that died in the war, the conflict between Brazil and Portugal. One person died. His name is Tiradentes because he was a dentist. That means to extract tooth. He was a dentist, and he was the only person that died. And they cut him up and sent him all over South America. As with the news and everything. That's a very, very old, ancient custom. To do that thing. Just you spread the news of so and so, and then you cut them up and you send them all over the country, and that's how the news spreads. But anyway, he uh, he was the only person that died in the Revolutionary War between Brazil and Portugal. So that's a good thing. Portugal just let them go, let them have their own country, whatever. And it's because there was a Portuguese explorer. I think his name is Pedro Alves Cabral. He was sailing. He was trying to go around the coast of Africa to India. He got lost in a storm and landed in Brazil. And that's why I speak Portuguese today. That's the only reason, because he got lost in a storm. Anyway, and of course, the other parts of South America were colonized by the Spaniards, including much of this area. And this area was taken or bought by the English, or taken control by the English-speaking people. Canada still is supposedly loyal to the throne of England or something like that. So I guess they never had a Revolutionary War. But anyways, That's the gist of it, I guess. So we do have African mtDNA in the indigenous population, probably because of recent history. And the same thing even in the United States over here. So that's an interesting thing, I guess. That just about wraps it up. You have the pie charts that seem very clear to me that we all came from this area here, this cradle of civilization right here. Each family went different directions, as you can see. They spread out. Of course, at the time of Babel, and see this, even this M, this M, or is it? No, that's not M. Is it M? Light green. Uh, yeah, this is Japhethite. This M is Japhethite. Because all of these are African. This is the beginning of the Japhethites. And the, no, this is mitochondrial. Yeah. Yeah. The M is the Japhethites. The N is the Semitics. And of course, this is the maternal line. So, and we have the same thing here. With the pie charts with the Y chromosome, exact same distribution. We have the concentration here in the cradle of civilization, Uzbekistan and such. Of course, Israel is here. Got the Babylon and everything over in this area. Africans went this way and this way. The descendants of Ham went two ways. They went this way. This is the Y chromosome, of course. These are the male descendants of Ham, not the female descendants. The female descendants of Ham apparently only went to Africa until recently. They were found in Brazil, but the male descendants of Ham went two ways. You have, of course, the A, the B, which are represented here. This A, this B. The C is not represented here. You don't have any C's in Africa. And that's a descendant of Ham. It's a clear descendant of Ham. Same thing with a D is a clear descendant of Ham. He's right, they're right in the middle. Because then you have the E's, all these E's, and they're African. So the C's are the Mongolians, of course. They went as far as North America, and even including the northern tip of South America, as we can see in this chart here. If you probably can't see it, but oh, here we go. Look at this. We have C3 over here, C3 over here, and C3 is traveling down this way apparently. But they are represented here. So these are the Mongolians descendants that are represented here. And all the way in here too. They're here too. All this C, this C3B, this is all relatives or descendants of Mongolians. So this is pretty neat here. In Japan, you have the D, which is Hamite too, descendant of Ham. You have this in Jomon. In Jomon, you have D2. Japan, you have D2, northern Japan, I guess. And you have D1 and D3 over here. You have D2 over here too in Paleo-Siberian. You have a Paleo-Siberian that's got D2. That's a descendant of Ham. That's different. It's a different probably a different brother than the Mongolian C. But then you have D1 and D3 in Tibet. So you have D1, D2, D3 in this area, and D2 went all the way over to Japan. And they're clear descendants of Ham. Of course, and then over here, what do we have? India is a very interesting history. Of course, it's ancient history. It's a lot of Middle Eastern history. The H's are the Dravidian. The H is Semitic. So Hij. It could be even Jewish for that matter, or Israel or something, because it's right next to Hij. Dravidian, but they have a history of their own too. Of course, you have the Qs. Remember the Qs? And the Qs that went all the way to Americas. And of course, the Qs are close. See how closely associated with the Qs are with the R? I think at one time they had them as the same thing, but they separated the Qs from the R. So the R's, because the R's are European, they're Japhethites in Europe. They have a large population, and there's so much you can see here. You got the M and the S, the K6, the O3. I mean, so much information here. The C4 and the K4. The K4, I'm thinking, is Japhethite. The same thing with most of these Ks, I think, are Japhethite because it's the dividing line between the Semites and the Japhethites. But as you will see here, which I guess I didn't show, the K is a fairly large group. So I'm thinking that the K belongs to the element OPQR more so than the FGHIJ. And because it's right on the dividing line and it's a large population. So, of course, the reason why it's hard to tell who's who is because, of course, Shem and Japheth were brothers. But the only way you can tell there's a difference is by the code or the different number of copies of the same information that we have, because that's what makes us different, is that we have different numbers of copies of the same information, because all we are is copies of Adam and Eve. So we can only be a copy of our fathers. And the variations have like a code that identifies who we are. But even so, in between these areas, it's kind of hard to tell. So I'm thinking the K is probably Japhethite, mostly. But it could be Semitic too. Could be Jewish, I don't know. Because the Jewish is the J, and the I could be Israel. And the H and the G could be just regular Semitic. Probably the H is Semitic. Because, of course, Abraham was a Semitic. He was a Sumerian from a Sumerian city called Ur. And he left the Semite population, and his progenitors are Israel. And, of course, could be Ishmael and the like too. So that would be an interesting study. I have to look at that too. So Yeah, it's pretty interesting. This over here, I have to show my heritage here. Up here says Germanic. They can't tell whether I'm Germanic or Irish and Scottish. They kind of lump it up in the same thing. And of course, I have some English too, probably. I have a certain amount of English. But this is where Israel was scattered. The lost tribes of Israel went into Europe. So the J and the J1, J2, and the I's. Where's the I's? We got J1 over here, J1 over here, and in Africa as well. So we got FG, H is over here, H, I, J. Okay, so the I's, where'd the I's come from? Where's the arrow for the I's? There's no arrows for the I's in here. Are they trying to say we're unrelated? Here's I right here. This is the arrow for the I's here. You have the Slavics, the I2, A2. I'm an I1. I'm an I1 M253. So the I two A's, anyways, they're closely associated with the J's. This is J2 here in this area. Of course, these are Y chromosomes. This is the main population. It's not representative of everybody in the area. It's just that there's a large number of the representatives of these different groups. So you have the J1, the J2, the I2, and then you got it backwards, and then the I1. And the I1 is Anglo Saxon, Scandinavian, and it's up in this area, Scotland, and my ancestry is Scottish. So that's how I got the I. Got the I over here, I2, I2A1, I2A2. But these to me are the lost tribes of Israel. Of course, even this J1 and J2 could be lost tribes of Israel too, for that matter. All this area over here. And of course, this J1E is probably the Arab descendants of Abraham, I would venture to say. J2 might be this, but of course, the Arabs and Jews are almost the same thing anyway. So, because they're both Semitic, apparently. And of course, there could be further study on the mitochondrial distribution among the Jewish population too. That's about it. You got the N. This is Y chromosome, so this N over here is Japhethite. LMNOP, QR. And the R's are clearly Japhethite in Europe. Because remember in the Bible, the Japhethites went north. This is north of Israel. So all these R's are representative of the Japhethites. Even all these and all the Japhethites in this area, which they're not all Japhethites. The O's are Japhethite. Element O, PQR. But it's all an interesting study. You have the O one in the Madagascar. So it's really interesting to me anyway. So there you have it, the three groups: A, B, C, D, E, F, F, G, H, I, J, K, K, L, M, N, O, P, Q, R. Those are the three sons of Noah: Ham, Shem, and Japheth. Oh, I got people who got Wildheart here. He was here anyway. Okay. Sorry about that, Wildheart. I was on a long explanation of the mtDNA and the Y chromosome. Of course, they're two different things. One is from the passed down through the mother, the other is passed down through the father. Are all these charts from answers in Genesis? No. No, these are right straight off the Wikipedia and other such sources and stuff like that. Not necessarily Wikipedia, but they're straight off the internet without any, discrepancy or without any bias. There's a lot of C's in Manchester. Oh, are there? Let me see. Oh, so there's a lot of C's in Manchester. Oh, I know what you're saying. Never mind. I'm slow. I'm slow sometimes. No, I don't know. The C's are the Mongolians. So you got Mongolians in Manchester? I don't know. So because I don't see them here in this area necessarily. But I don't know. Do you know what you are, Wildheart, or do you have any idea what you might be? Oh, C. C4. It's, I don't know. You have to go talk to them, see what they're like. But of course, the C's are mixed up with the general, autosomal population, which is basically a mixture of Semite and Japhethite and a lot of Japhethite. Because the Japhethites seem to have more of the Neanderthal DNA in them. Okay. So, have you worked out how many generations you can have in 6,000 years? There can't have been anywhere near enough. Well, they're still working on that. Of course, the creationists will say it's only 6,000 years, and the other ones are saying it's millions of years. And it doesn't seem to me like there's millions of years. Because, like, millions of years is a lot. 6,000 years is a lot. Millions of years, I don't see any evidence of that. So, can't have anywhere. Okay. So, yeah, Wildheart admits to being slow. I mean, when you're slow, you're slow. I guess, that's all there is to it. You can't hide it. Uh, but anyways, this is pretty neat, I think. Because DNA doesn't lie. We're not out of Africa. We're from the we're from the cradle of civilization, everybody. Everybody went every which way from there. It's clear as day, if I can find it. Everybody's from the cradle of civilization went every which way, both mtDNA and Y chromosome. Same story. Highly represented in the cradle of civilization and hardly represented elsewhere. This E here is a Japhetite. So this dark is a Japhetite. Oh, I'm not even sharing no more. Okay, I guess that's about it. Thanks for your participation, Wildheart. Always need some company sometimes. It helps to stimulate the conversation a little bit. But I think that's about it for right now. It's 7 o'clock in the morning right here. I'll be taking my nap pretty soon, or in a little while. Then I have to go to work. Yeah, this chat here for some reason is a little bit slow. It takes a while for it to register here. I would have thought it would have been fairly easy calculation. Um, well, it is kind of easy for 6,000 years. It's just not so easy, I don't think, for millions of years, because there's a big difference between 6,000 years and millions of years, and we know what our history is. We know that we all came from the cradle of civilization, which is where the ark landed, and we have a history going back to the Sumerians, to the Hindus, to the Chinese, to the Egyptians, and the Egyptians were descendants of Ham. You know, that's really kind of clear. And if it was millions of years, it would be all mixed up. You know, the the DNA is not very mixed up. The Bible says that it will be mixed up, or is becoming mixed up, or in the end times that will mix it up. But it's not mixed up for billions of years, I don't believe. I mean, it would be a lot more. And if it was out of Africa, we'd have everybody represented in Africa, and everyone is not represented in Africa. And even the descendants of the Africans didn't even go to Africa. So you have a big problem there. You have a huge problem with that. And of course, it's not a problem for creationists, because we told you anyway. We told you so. All right, later. Well, I hate to say it, but we told you so.